This is Abhilash. In this session, we are going to discuss on money income, inflation, and business cycle. I am starting with the money income. So let's look at the definition. The total stock of money circulating in an economy is the money supply. The circulating money involves the currency, printed notes, money in the deposit accounts, and in the form of other liquid assets. So governments issues paper currency and coin through some combination of their central banks and treasuries. Bank regulators influence money supply available to the public through the requirements placed on banks to hold reserves and how to extend credit and other regulation. Valuation and analysis of the money supply help the economists and policy makers to frame the policy or to alter the existing policy of increasing or reducing the supply of money. The valuation is important as it ultimately affects the business cycle and thereby affects the economy. Periodically, every country central bank publishes the money supply database on the monetary aggregates set by them. In India, the Reserve Bank of India follows M0, M1, M2, M3 and M for monetary aggregates. Effect of money supply generate more investment. That means effect of the money supply on the economy and increases in the supply of money typically lower interest rates which in turn generates more investment and puts more money in the hands of consumers thereby stimulating spending. So that means it's increasing the spending power of consumers. So businesses respond by ordering more raw materials and increasing productions. The increased business activity raises the demand for labor. The opposite can occur if the money supply falls when its growth rate declines. So, change in the money supply has long been considered to be a key factor in driving macroeconomic performance and business cycles. How money supply is measured? The various types of money in the money supply are generally classified as M's such as M0, M1, M2, M3 according to the type and size of the account in which the investment is kept. Not all of the classifications are widely used and each country may use different classifications. The money supply reflects the different types of liquidity each type of money has in the economy. It is broken up to into different categories of liquidity or spendability. Historically, the measuring the money supply has shown that relationship exists between it and inflation and price levels. However, since 2000, the relationship have become unstable, reducing their reliability as a guide for monetary policy. Although money supply measures are still widely used, they are one of the wide array of the economic data that economics reviews. Moving to the next part, that is inflation. So inflation is also part of money income. Inflation is the decline of purchasing power of a given currency over time. A quantitative estimate of the rate at which the decline in purchasing power occurs can be reflected in the increase of an average price level of a basket of selected goods and services in an economy over some period of time. The rise in the general level of prices, often expressed as a percentage, means that a unit of currency effectively buys less than it did in prior periods. Key takeaways of inflation. Inflation is the rate at which the value of currency is falling and consequently the general level of prices for goods and services is rising with the same time. Inflation is sometimes classified into three types: demand pull inflation, cost push inflation, and built-in inflation. Most commonly used inflation indices are consumer price index and the wholesale price index. Inflation can be viewed positively and negatively depending on the individual viewpoint and rate of change. So those with tangible assets like property or stock commodities may like to see some inflation as that raises the value of their assets. People holding cash may not like inflation or it erodes the value of their cash holdings. Ideally, an optimum level of inflation is required to promote spending to certain extent instead of saving, thereby nurturing economic growth. Next is business cycle. Business cycles are marked by the alternative of phases of expansion and contraction in aggregate economic activity. The movement among economic variables in each phase of cycle, aggregate economic activity is represented by not a real, that is inflation adjusted. GDP, a measure of aggregate output, but also the aggregate measures of industrial production, employment, income, and sales, which are the key constituent economic indicators used for the official determination. So this is the diagram of uh, business cycle, where on the lower side there is a temperature temps and on the y-axis we have a active economies. Okay, so here you can see the recession is here. This is the curve is starting from here, and some when recession happening the sales will decrease of the company, then this going down, again some expansion, again some repricing done, again product selling is happening, the revenue is increasing, it's coming to the company account, then again the company growth and the economy is increasing. So recession means the period of declining economic activity where output and employment fall. Expansion means period of increase in economic activity where output and employment rise. This is the peak activity. This is the peak activity. The point at which the economy goes from expansion to recessions. Activity through the point at which the economy moves from recession to expansion. Okay. So this is all about the business cycle. In this session, we have discussed money flow with the inflation and business cycles. And here we are done with the unit 5 of managerial economics. If anyone is having question, they can connect with me personally. Here we have to discuss some takeaways of business cycles. Like business cycles are comprised of concentrated cyclical upswings and downswings in the broad measure of economic activity, output, employment, income, and sales. The alternative phase of the business cycle are expansion and contraction, also called a recession. Recession starts at the peak of the business cycle when an expansion ends, the end up through the of business cycle when the next expansion begins. The severity of a recession is measured by the three D's: depth, diffusion, and duration, and the strength of the expansion by how pronounced, pervasive, and persistent it is. Okay, thank you all.